When you're number one, everybody's gunning for you. Well, we'll tell you about one company that says, fire at will. That's this week on Motoring 2002.
TSN's Motoring 2002 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.
You know, there was a day when this building was home to a thriving business with a bright future, and then one day it all came to an end. And that can happen in any business when you least expect it, including the auto business. I mean, take Audi, for instance. Back in the mid-'80s, life couldn't have been rosier. The 5000 was the car du jour, the sign of success. And then along came a television program, 60 Minutes, that concluded that recent accidents involving the Audi 5000 were the result of unintended acceleration and not driver error. Well, Audi soon proved those charges unfounded, but the damage was done. Sales dropped like a stone. And then along came the Audi A4, a car that almost single-handedly saved a company that was about to close down its operations in North America. Well, you know, our Bill Gardner has this saying that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And while the current A4 is still hot, there are more players in this segment than ever before. And Audi has now decided that this is the time to up the ante.
It's a car that really was the significant driver in the comeback. It started off very low levels in 1995, and now we see ourselves selling over 35,000 of the outgoing A4. And each successive year that the car has been in the market, it's sold more cars. Right up to this year, it's run out year, where it's selling at record levels.
I think it's a little more mature. It's still sporty. It's a little larger, of course, but it's more dynamic, and it's got a lot of refinements in it, including a new engine. We've got 1.8T turbocharged 5-valve 4-cylinder rated at 170 horsepower. But we've got an all-new, all-aluminum, double overhead cam 5-valve V6. This is a 3-liter version that replaces the outgoing 2.8. It's got a cast aluminum block utilizing the Cosworth patented process, which is now part of our group. And it has a 14% increase in power, 7% increase in torque, but no penalty, no increase in fuel consumption. In other words, you get all this extra power with no penalty in fuel consumption. Plus, it's cleaner because it meets the more stringent ULEV emission standard.
We were worried about changing it too much because it was a winning formula, and you know, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, was certainly applicable here. So it's improved in its in an evolutionary way rather than a revolutionary way. The car, with its wider track and it's slightly bigger, but it's got a very clean design line, a little bit more muscularity in the sit on the road, and with a very modern rear with some sharper cut lines, giving it a modern appearance, but yet still undeniably an Audi.
As a product, you know, I never were very impressed by Audi, but technically speaking, they are always ahead the competition. If you take a look at the past with the galvanized steel unibody, the aluminum space frame, and also the Quattro, of course, 20 years ago, they were ahead of the pack of their competitor. But today, you know, I have to say I'm impressed by the last A4 because it's a very good package, it's well done, and this Multitronic transmission, you know, it's a clear, real innovation.
Do I decide between an automatic or a manual? This transmission combines the best of both of those worlds. as you heard this morning and experienced firsthand today, it's more efficient than a manual, it's quicker than a manual, but yet it's smoother than an automatic transmission, a conventional automatic transmission. And this, I think, combines, again, those best of both worlds, so it eliminates a choice. The type of person who's going to want it, it's going to be the person who's seeking out something new, some new technology, something that's going to give them an advantage, someone who wants something that's more refined, or someone who just plain doesn't want to shift the manual transmission anymore, but still wants a sporty, active car.
Consumer doesn't have to understand everything in technology. The thing we have to remind people is that the better efficiency of the transmission reflect on the driving pleasure, and also the fuel efficiency. And for a small 1.8 engine, the results is very spectacular. I know the principle is well known, is 50 years old, the Van Dorn thing, but this is a clear, brand new application to a modern car. And they will put the old automatic transmission to rest.
So overall, we see the car in terms of its competitive position in that segment alongside cars like the IS300 from Lexus, the famous BMW 3 Series, the C-Class Mercedes, and the shortly to appear Jaguar X-Type being an incredibly competitive, important sector, growing sector of the North American car market.
The nice thing about the new A4, I think, will appeal to even a broader range of customers than the outgoing A4 did. So I think we'll see even greater success with the new A4.
The lowdown on high-tech tranny talk. That's coming up later on Kenzie's Corner.
I done it wrong again, Dad. Sorry. On this edition of Test Drive, we take a look at the third generation Altima. Is it 3 strikes and they're out, or are we witnessing a real metamorphosis? The new Altima marks a radical departure from the previous car. Of the many upgrades, the body is one of the better. Not only has the dowdy look been trashed, the chassis itself is stiffer. With more than 20 body and structural improvements, it all adds up to a 170% increase in overall stiffness. Not only does this cut down on the usual squeaks and rattles, it gives the suspension a good place to hang its hat. Factor in a wheelbase that's 7 inches longer and a track that's wider, and the Altima handles very nicely indeed. Through the pylons, body roll is benign and understeer far enough out that you really can enjoy life in the fast lane without worrying. The balance feel imparted by the steering helps matters enormously. The lone complaint are the tyres. While the grip in the dry is good, it rapidly deteriorates in the wet, which causes you to think. It used to be that 175 horsepower was the exclusive domain of a V6. Well, that's not true anymore, because the biggest improvement to the Altima is right here. This 2.5 litre 4 does indeed produce 175 horsepower. However, if you really feel the need for speed, take the 240 horsepower V6. It delivers a 4-door sedan with the heart of a lion. All of this power comes from some fancy engineering. Both the 4 and the 6 are equipped with continuously variable valve timing, structural reinforcements, and an electronically controlled drive-by-wire throttle. The results must be enjoyed to be fully appreciated. The 4 is fast and refined across the range, thanks in part to its 180 pounds-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM, and will run to 100 kilometers an hour in about 7 seconds. Married with this motor is a choice of manual and automatic boxes. While the do-it-yourselfer does make better use of the engine, the automatic is almost as good, bringing wisely selected ratios and a prompt kickdown when needed. In short, you won't miss out on much by taking the Slash-O-Matic. The rear environment in this Altima, well, it's been reworked very well. You get limo-like legroom, plenty of headroom, and the seats themselves are very comfortable. You also get 60/40 split folding rear seats which complement the cavernous trunk very nicely. From a driver's perspective, this Altima has been very well thought through. To begin with, you get an 8-way manual seat. Add to that tilt and telescopic steering wheel, and well, you can set the driver's position very quickly and very easily. To the left, all the power items are neatly grouped together. There's a great set of gauges ahead of the driver, and then the center stack, well, the radio and climate controls are not only mounted in the right order, the controls are also large enough to use with gloved hands. Where the whole thing falls apart somewhat, the plastics and the upholstery and fabrics, well, they're best described as mediocre. In terms of stopping power, the Altima excels. Braking is handled by 4-wheel discs and a 4-sensor, 4-channel anti-lock system. The ABS features both electronic brake force distribution and brake assist. Now, the latter recognises a panic stop and automatically applies full braking. In the real world, this can shave up to 30% off a driver-only stop. Now, that's the difference between examining the contents of the trunk ahead firsthand and a very comfortable miss. In terms of safety, the Altima again comes with the wherewithal to run with the competition. Along with dual-stage front airbags that monitor seatbelt use and collision severity, it comes with front seatbelt tensioners and load limiters, as well as optional side impact airbags and a roof-mounted side curtain. Now, the latter is designed to protect the heads of both the front and rear passengers in a side impact.
You know, that original Altima was very anonymous primarily because of its very stage styling and lack of power. With this new Altima, the game changes completely. It's gone from caterpillar to butterfly because it now has the wings to run with anything in its segment. In short, the anonymity of old, well, it's very much a thing of the past.
Time to check in with our long-term Honda Insight. Econobox is the word we hear to describe small, fuel-efficient vehicles, or boring for short. Well, yes, the Insight is small, and the fuel mileage is incredible. Boring, it's not. We love the styling and love answering the numerous inquiries about the car during our rare visits to the gas station. It's the perfect commuter car, yet Honda has sold only about 250 since it went on sale in March of 2000. It seems people like to complain about high fuel costs, yet have largely ignored the Insight. Just to review, the Insight runs off a 1-liter 3-cylinder gasoline engine with electric motor assist. The battery automatically recharges whenever the car slows down. We'll see how the battery and the car handles the winter weather and report back on our next update.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns paying attention to winter weather. I'm always watching the weather forecast before I head out in the wintertime, and I think you should for a number of reasons. First of all, driving conditions can change quickly. You want to be prepared for the worst. And in terms of dressing for the worst, you should always have sufficient clothing for the worst possible conditions, because you never know if you're going to get a flat, run out of fuel, or have your trip greatly extended because of adverse weather conditions. If you get caught out there, you want to make sure you're prepared. Another important thing to have in your vehicle is a winter survival kit, first aid gear, candles, and food as well. A number of things like blankets, warmers, and water supply are important things to have in the car, and I strongly suggest you consult the Motor League or an auto club, because there's many other things that could be included in your survival kit and many other tips, too long to mention here, that are important things any motorist should know for winter driving. That's your Midas tip of the week.
What you're looking at is a 2002 Firebird Firehawk, 345 horsepower, the highest horsepower rating for Firebird or Camaro in its history. and it goes away with a big bang after the 2002 model year. The car is built essentially by General Motors as a Trans Am, and it then effectively comes over to SLP Engineering for further alterations. We change the front hood as a plastic composite, functionally ram air hood, spoiler, 17-inch wheels and tires. We upgrade the suspension, the exhaust, the airbox, the differential. And the whole package gives you better handling, better braking, better takeoff, more horsepower, 0 to 60 times. It's an overall package just to bring its performance up to peak.
Camaro and Trans Am are now going to be a thing of past. They're closing the factory down in Quebec. Your feelings on that?
Well, obviously, we're not happy as a company. I'm not happy as an enthusiast. The enthusiasts themselves are not happy altogether. We have to kind of understand the situation of General Motors and its position. But unfortunately, it's a car that's been in people's hearts for a very long time, so it's very difficult to let go.
Is this the end of rear-wheel drive cars, you think, throughout the industry?
I don't think so, because I look at the European vehicles and you know, you're looking at a high-performance vehicle or a high-performance luxury vehicle, and they're all rear-wheel drive. So I don't see that going away, and American car manufacturers are already talking about bringing in their cars in rear-wheel drive. So no, it's not going to go away.
A few years back, the Audi A4 was a segment winner on Motoring's Car of the Year program. Only time will tell if the new and improved A4 will repeat those honors. And you know, speaking of the Car of the Year special, it's quickly approaching when we'll select the best in the class of 2002. All right, speaking of the best, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner. Bill?
Well, Brad, my dad used to have a saying, and he said, the best is none too good. And when it comes to wiper blades, that's certainly the case. We've got some email from one of our viewers here, Bob Latta, and he says, when you purchase a new car, the wiper blades work just great, no squeaking, skipping, etc. When you go to replace the wiper blades, why do the replacement blades at auto parts stores usually skip, squeak, or just don't operate like the original? Well, Bob, the fact is they're not original. They're usually cheaper imitations, and that's one good reason why they don't work as well. When you're buying new wiper blades for your car, far and away your first choice should be with dealer wiper blades. They are the best. However, in some cases, cost is prohibitive. You may find that some blades on certain vehicles are as much as $40 a blade. I've seen them that high. When the cost gets that high, you're looking at aftermarket blades. And there are some good aftermarket blades. Now, the best aftermarket blades have metal frames. The cheaper, more inexpensive ones, which don't work as well, of course, have plastic frames. And that's how you weed out the men from the boys. If they've got metal frames, they're the better ones. If they're plastic frames, they're usually less expensive ones. Plastic also has the tendency to fracture at extremely low temperatures. So if you're way up north or way out west, you want to stay away from plastic in most cases. Now, a couple of other things to keep in mind. As the vehicle ages, of course, the windshield gets a little bit pitted and the blades don't work as well no matter how good the blades are. Also, if your car's been in a body shop for partial respraying or any kind of body work, sometimes you'll get a little bit of paint overspray in the windshield. If the opposite corner of the car was being painted, they may not have masked off the windshield. Sometimes in cases like that, when you turn your wiper blades on, you'll hear an abrasive sound on the windshield, kind of sounds like sandpaper. And if you take razor blades and scrape the entire windshield, you can get that overspray off of there. Your blades will work well again. Another thing that you can do is take some full strength washer fluid or glass cleaner, spray it on a cloth and drag it along the rubber element of your wiper blade. Drag it along and then look at it. You're going to see it's going to come up black, and that gunge or crud that's on the side of the blades gets smeared into your windshield every time you turn the wipers on. So cleaning it off will give you better performance. Now, how long do the blades last? There's a lot of variables there again. A car like this with hideaway wipers where the wipers tuck down behind the windshield, the blades last a long time because they're out of the UV rays of the sun. They just last that much longer. If it's a vehicle where the blades park up on top of the windshield and your vehicle's parked outside all the time, you're going to be replacing the blades frequently. So think about maybe parking your car inside, one more part that'll just last that much longer. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2002.
You know, car makers are always going on about all new this and all new that, but it's not very often we see something that's truly revolutionary. But the new transmission in this Audi A4, well, it doesn't just change gears, it changes the world. Now, Audi's calling this thing a Multitronic, which I think is a stupid name. It sounds like an engine management system. What it is a continuously variable transmission, or CVT. Now, I don't want to get all technical on you, but listen up, because this is something you got to know about. It's sort of like the gearing system on your bicycle. You know how you got big sprockets and little sprockets on the pedals and on the rear axle, and as the chain jumps from one sprocket to the other, you change gears. Well, that's how this thing works, except there are pulleys in there with a steel belt. You can have a really low gear for good acceleration. You can have a really tall gear for good cruising on the highway. The way it all works out is this car is faster in acceleration than a manual. It's smoother shifting than an automatic, because no matter how good an automatic is, you can still feel the car bump a little bit when it changes gears. And it gets better fuel economy than either of them. What's not to like? It's unbelievable. It's the transmission of the future. Now, Audi is not the first company to make CVTs. A Dutch company called Van Doorn, way back in the 50s, had this concept. Volvo bought that company, and now several car makers do have CVTs, but only in small engines. The beauty of this deal is this is the first transmission strong enough to withstand the kind of power that Audi's new V6 puts out. You can be sure that Audi and others are working on CVTs to handle even bigger engines. As a matter of fact, any transmission engineer who's working on anything but a CVT, well, he's just wasting his time. I'm Jim Kenzie.
A few final thoughts on the Audi A4. From a styling point of view, personally I think it looks too much like its older brother, the A6. Not that that's a bad thing, but you know you could always pick out the older model of A4 in a crowd. And as I mentioned earlier, this segment is definitely crowded, but Audi is convinced that the A4 will continue its tradition of success, building on success. Time will tell. And speaking of time, in the next few weeks, we'll be presenting our Car of the Year program. You won't want to miss it. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
We have 36 cars with only one under wraps.
That could only mean it's Car of the Year time.
I'll now ask Lisa and Rosanna to reveal Motoring 2002's Car of the Year.
TSN's Motoring 2002 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.